Welcome to the Instagram stories for Tuesday, July 18th. I'm your host, Daniel Hill. I am very excited to talk about something that I just learned about Instagram. I was listening to a New York Times interview of Adam Mosseri, where he was being interviewed by Kevin Roose, who writes for the New York Times, and Casey Newton, who is an independent journalist who writes for his own publication called Platformer. They were talking to Adam about the various aspects of Instagram and threads and all this, but Adam talked specifically about how Instagram tried to build Reels inside stories first and wasted almost a year doing that. They could have had Reels out almost a year sooner if they had not tried to build it in stories, or if they had just continued to go with it, build in stories, instead of scrapping that idea and going to the feed. Here's a clip of Adam talking about how they spent 9 months trying to put Reels inside stories before realizing that it would not work and having to start all over.
Well, I was going to ask, you've been at Instagram for a while now, and I wonder sort of like, where would you rank this in terms of swings that you have taken? Does this feel like sort of the longest limb you've ever crawled out on, or have there been other things that felt just as unlikely when you launched them?
This probably feels like the longest limb. I do think the work on Reels always felt very tough. On one hand, to be clear, short form video was a huge part of Instagram long before I joined Instagram, and Reels is, I think, just an evolved version of short form video. But TikTok is just such a phenomenally intense, well executing competitor. Just even trying to play in their space at all felt a lot like putting your neck out there. And we had some pretty big misses. We lost 9 months because we tried to build it on top of stories instead of building it into feed because we didn't want to complicate the app any further. But it turned out most stories people don't actually view, because there's so many more stories than there's time to view for most people. They view like 10, 15, 20%, whatever it is. And so it wasn't a foundation that was sufficiently strong to build, a really compelling short form video product on top of. But we lost 9 months, maybe a year. What does the world look like if we had launched a year earlier and had a really compelling short form video product before COVID-19 hit in March of 2020? I don't know. But yeah, that one also Reels has always felt a little bit like a lot of scrutiny, internally as well as externally.
Here's why I picked that clip to highlight. Sometimes you're working on a content strategy and you don't feel like it's working or it's having any effect. And at some point, you might decide to scrap your current strategy and go back to the drawing board and come up with a new strategy. It doesn't matter if you just are one person, you have a team, or you're a company within Meta, whatever. Sometimes you have to just know when to cut your losses and realize that the path you're going down is not right. We think of Instagram as having so many great parts of the app. It's made so much money for Meta. There have been negatives and things that have been taken out from the app because they didn't work as well as they could have, or they should have, or they just never gained popularity. But it's really nice to kind of get that internal look and realize that Reels needed a lot of work to reach the point that it's at. And it's still not as great as TikTok. So just kind of puts things in perspective for your own content creation journey. At least it did for me. Hopefully you get that too. We are going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to do some Adam Mosseri clips from his Ask Me Anything. So stick around.
This episode is brought to you by Michigan Economic Development Corporation. In Michigan, you can have both a rewarding career and a quality lifestyle, with plentiful career opportunities in world-changing, innovating industries, from electric vehicles to clean energy to biotech, with room for advancement no matter where you are in your career. Plus, Michigan offers a welcoming, beautiful, affordable, and inclusive community for all. Live your best life. You can in Michigan. Visit themichiganlife.org.
And we're back. Okay, let's get into the Adam Mosseri's Ask Me Anything clips. The first one has to do with all the people who live in Europe. The question, we want threads in France. When can we expect to have it? People in Europe have been unable to have threads because of the GDPR, which are very important laws that Europeans have to protect their privacy. I very much wish that we had something similar in the United States.
Unfortunately, for support in the EU to make sure that we're compliant with laws that are coming in 2024, it's just going to take a while. I wish it wasn't. I have been living outside the US for a year now. I think we need to be way less US-centric. as a team, I've been pushing for that in a really big way, but it just turns out that in order to make sure that we can verify all the things we need to do to be compliant here in the EU, I'm actually in Italy right now, it's just going to take many months, unfortunately.
So you will have to wait some time, or you could potentially use a VPN to get around it. I'm not saying you should do that, but that is an idea. Let's go on to the next question. How's Threads retention been so far? I will say for myself that I was excited to use Threads for the first day or so, and then I realized that it was not so exciting for me personally.
It's better than expected. Growth is better than expected as well. Engagement's better than expected as well, but it's not yet where it needs to be. We've got a long road ahead. It's just, a small team over about 5 months, wanted to really get something out. We were worried that our window was going to close, so we shipped earlier than we normally would, and now we've got a lot of catching up to do, which is exciting.
Next question. Can I get verified on Threads? You probably know the answer already. Obviously, you can.
Yep, if you're verified on Instagram, it'll carry over and you'll be verified on Threads as well.
And the last question we're going to discuss today, what if you don't like the content that you're seeing in your Reels and you want it to be better? The question, how do I get different content in my Reels tab? Here's his answer.
As you use the tab more, we're going to get better at understanding your interests, and your tab should change. But if we're making mistakes and recommending things you're not interested in, just hit the 3 dots and hit not interested, and that'll actually help us show you less similar content in the future.
If you're not seeing the content you like on Instagram, honestly, just go on TikTok. That is going to do it for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. Be sure to come back next time for more Instagram news, social media news, other important things that I think you need to know as a content creator or someone who works in social media or just needs to be up on all the important things that have to do with the tech world. Thanks for listening.
Instagram news got you covered, sometimes even TikTok. Relevant platforms in the metaverse ahead of the wave, without a break or a pit stop. Still waiting for Zuckerberg to give me the big job. Pause. Use trademarks and logos with Insta's permission, of course. If you like the show and you gain some good info, maybe leave a review. It's a type of applause. Just drop me a message if you want to collab. If you got some good content or you want to run ads, at Daniel Hill Media is where I am. TikTok, Facebook and Instagram.